Hello everyone, welcome to the series of Module 9, Fostering Academic Relationship, Lecture 9. I'm Dr. Oin Mebang, clinical psychologist, and today we are going to discuss about cultural sensitivity in academic relationship. And here we'll come across with the professional lecture on understanding inclusivity and respect. Coming into psychological foundation of understanding, when we talked about the foundation of understanding in any field, whether it's academic, whether it's professional or personal, we have to understand the meaning of empathy and sympathy. Empathy always brings a place where you can understand how the other persons are going through, and in sympathy it's more about you will feel sorry about the people or the individual, and there will be no connection of feelings or emotions. And when coming into the academic relationship, it's very much necessary to develop an empathy instead of sympathy. And theory of mind, here we talked about the ability to attribute mental stress, where our beliefs, desires, and intentions automatically comes up to others, and recognize this will actually bring more peace in the relationship, where we'll come to know that what are our previous beliefs, and it can bring a non-judgmental concept or non-judgmental answers to the table. So it's also very much to understand your own mind, your own beliefs, desires, and what are your intentions. And talking about the cognitive bias, it happens when we make the assumptions from our previous, I'll say, the experiences which we have. So here confirmation bias will happen. For example, if you have interacted with something and you understand that it has happened that way, then if the situation will arise, and that time your decision will be very biased related to that, and fundamental attributions error can happen. The role of identity and intersectionality in inclusivity. One is social identity theory. Here, how group membership shapes self-concept and social interaction. When talking in terms of race, gender, culture, ability, we all will react differently in the same situation, but the way we will perceive the things will be different, and the way that we interpret the same scenario will be very different from each other. So we have to understand how the social identity theory also plays an important role in intersectionality in inclusivity. Then coming into the intersectionality, it's basically the understanding that students may experience multiple overlapping forms of inclusions or marginalization. When we talked about, like, for example, if I have to change my place for my educational purpose, then there I might face the language barrier, I might face the culture biasness over there. So that way the other people can also help. For example, if we are working in a group, then other people can also help us to adjust with the environment, where we says that the transition will happen, and obviously by respecting the culture, the race, gender, and not making any comment on that will make the group a very prosperous one, and there we will be able to work together in a more powerful manner, I'll say. Then coming into the implicit bias, the implicit bias is the unconscious biasness, where we associate the things which we hold and how they influence micro behavior in classroom and social spaces. Then respect as a core psychological need. Here we'll talk about the self-determination theory. In self-determination theory, respect supports the basic psychological need of autonomy. For example, if you feel like you understand the concept very well, and there your psychological need of autonomy will automatically comes up, and you might be bias regarding the answers which are coming from the other's point of view. And there will be a competence where you will feel like, no, I'm the one who knows it better than anyone. So we have to be very much careful about when working in a team and working in a fostering relationship. We have to respect others' psychological need, and we have to respect the space of that. And coming into the boundaries and consent, it's very much necessary in any relationship, whether it's personal or professional. As I said it before, boundaries and consent, these are two different things. And when we talked about the boundaries, there is healthy boundaries and unhealthy boundaries. And respecting that boundaries from others or your own boundaries, it will make the line, or it will make the concept very clear for everyone that where exactly they have to put their hand, and recognizing and honoring others' emotions or the perspective of the others. And here the cultural boundaries also comes. For example, if a person is from a background where talking loud is example of self respect, involved recognition and honoring others' physical and emotional cultural boundaries. Consent is something where we have to take the consent from the other. For example, in terms of the research, if we talk about, if you are going to collect data from the general population, then it's very much needed that you have to take the consent, not only in the field of research, but in the field of, again, the personal and professional life. You have to be very mindful about it and take the concept before you doing anything when the other party is involved in that particular portion. So the consent is very much necessary. And when we keep the consent, it's also very much necessary to understand that we can always deny it later on if you feel like it might be a trait for you or for the other people. So the consent can be denied at any time. Coming into the dignity in dialogue, where respect is enchanted through active listening, validation, and withholding judgment. Coming into the group dynamic and campus culture, where conformity and peer influence plays an important role, how social pressure can both erode and enforce inclusive behavior. Here, when we talked about the peer influence can be in a good manner or can be in a unhealthy manner. So here we have to understand, by working with self, by developing the skills, by developing the critical thinking, here we can understand how my behavior is influencing the other people and how I'm getting influenced by the other peers with whom I'm spending my time. So that way, by knowing it or by understanding it, one will be able to work on self and work with the group. Then bystander effect, it's the psychological tendency to not intervene in situations of disrespect or exclusion and how to counteract it. Bystander effect itself means that, for example, in a group, if you are seeing that something is not going right, but there are lots of people around you and you feel like, if I'm not stunned also, then there are other people who will stand for them. And by thinking about that, will not voice out the things which is right to do on that particular time. So understand the bystander effect also. If something is happening, it's always good to do the clear communication with the other people, and bystander effect will bring the biasness on that particular time. And norm setting, promoting inclusive and respectful group norms through modeling, reinforcement, and peer leadership. Norm setting is like, whenever we are in a group, it's always necessary to set a norm where we'll pass the message very clearly and will say, for example, if we have a term, for example, if we have to work from 1 to 7, then we'll work 1 to 7, not beyond that or not before that. So norm settings are also very much necessary for both fostering relationship in terms of academic or in personal life also. Coming into the psychological benefits of inclusive and respectful environment. And when we talked about the inclusive and respectful environment, it also says that coming from different cultures, different backgrounds, different race, gender, so it's also very much necessary when we are working with the fostering relationship, then we have to understand that our perspective and others' perspective will be different from each other, as we all are unique in our own ways. And when we understand it and respect the other individual, it will automatically reduce the anxiety and depression on them, and they will feel the belongingness in a protective area where they are working. So the psychological distress will automatically go down if in the team there is inclusive and respectful environment. Improving academic performance. And when we also talked about the respectful environment, then by understanding the other person who comes from a different background, race, gender, and other cultural backgrounds, then when we start respecting the boundaries of there, and when we understand how they are working and what's the pattern of their working, and by knowing it, by passing the clear communication, and whenever needed, asking questions and giving feedback, it will automatically improve the academic performance of the person who has come from a different background. And it will also bring a safe, inclusive environment, which will enhance cognitive performance and motivation for the individual. Coming into the resilience and growth. When we talked about the resilience and growth, it's more like an individual's adaptation to the new place. Here, the previous experiences will also play an important role. If the person has been into different places and they have been exposed to the diverse perspective, then it's very much chances will be there that they will be able to adjust more efficiently in the group, and the resilience they will be able to build. And when there is inclusive and respectful environment, then it becomes much more easier for the other individuals to develop that resilience and growth. And it will also says that the more they exposed to the diverse perspective also promotes the flexibility and the empathy and emotional intelligence. Understanding cultural differences. Here we'll cover the cultural influences, communication style, expectations and collaboration, direct versus indirect communication in different cultures, and hierarchical or egalitarian relationship in academic. And I'll present a case study where Japanese student hesitating to challenge professor's ideas. Cultural influence, communication style, expectation and collaboration. Cultural profoundly shapes how individuals communicate, set expectations and collaborate, especially in diverse college environment. Here, as we have said before also, when person comes from a different culture or background, race or gender, then it's very much necessary to communicate clearly. And when we talked about the communication style, it has to be precise and very clear, and there has to run the process of back and forth where you will come up with the critical thinking and come up with your own ideas, and then you will represent it in front of the supervisor or in front of your group, and then expect nothing from it, because it can happen that your ideas will submerge over there, and in the team a new idea will come up with that. So that way we can diversify the things, and without expectation, if you're going and collaborating with others by respecting the ideas which are coming from the side and which you are bringing in the table. So it's also a communication style where you understand how to collaborate and how you can work in the team, especially when in college environment where diverse cultures and races and genders will be present. So that way one can work with their communication styles without expecting, and that will be a very healthy collaboration between the team. And coming into the communication style vary across cultures, as we have talked about it before also. In communication style will be different in culture to culture, and it matters from which background and which environment the other person has come up. Some will prioritize the direct conversation and clarity with low context, while others rely on non-verbal cues and share understanding, which is high context. When we say non-verbal cues and share understanding, it can the person might express it by their face or by using their hand gesture or by giving some gestures from their body. That can be a communication style which they have been practicing since long. So this might also come into the picture. And expectations around hierarchy and participants also differs. For example, a student from high power distance culture may be less likely to challenge authority figure or speak up in class, and vice versa can happen with the other participants. It can differ from culture to culture and from which background they have come from. So by respecting it, we can always bring a collaborative and fostering relationship in the academic area, not only in the academic area, but also in personal life and professional life. And in group setting, cultural values influence whether collaboration is seen through a lens of collective harmony or individual contribution. Again, the misinterpretation can arise when we assume our norms are universal. Developing cultural awareness and flexibility, key components of cultural intelligence, allow students to build respectful, inclusive, and psychological safe academic relationship. Here comes the direct versus indirect communication in different cultures. Communication styles vary significantly across cultures, often falling on a spectrum from direct to indirect communication style. Here, psychological, these styles are shaped by cultural values like individualism versus collectivism. And notions of face-saving misunderstandings can occur when one interrupts indirectness as evasiveness or directedness as rudeness. For college students, especially in multicultural environment, recognizing these differences fosters empathy, reduces conflict, and supports more inclusive interpersonal relationship. Hierarchical versus egalitarian relationship in academia. It's like in academic setting, the nature of relationship between students and faculty can vary depending on cultural norms and hierarchy. In hierarchy cultures, professors are seen as authoritative figures whose knowledge and positions are rarely questioned. Respect is shown through formality, deference, and adherence to clearly defined roles. And here, when we talked about the hierarchical things, when we see our professor or our supervisor as the authoritative figure, then there can be two chances that the student might not question on anything, whatever their authoritative figure is saying, and vice versa thing can happen. We have to understand, coming from different background and different cultures, the population in between student will be different. So the way they will make a relationship with their supervisor will be different from each other. Some of them who will question, it doesn't mean that they have to be respectful, but or the one who is not questioning, it doesn't mean that they are disrespecting their position. It has to be fostering thing where both the parties will allow each other to some critical thinkings or come up with new ideas so that they can work together. And coming up with new ideas, it doesn't mean that the other is denying the ideas which is coming from the other way. It's more likely bringing two perspectives together, or two or more perspectives together, and making it one, which will bring more good ideas or good place to research on. And it's also very much necessary that when coming into the hierarchical, we doesn't have to feel offended, and we have to be very assertive by respecting other person, and by keeping your respect on there, you have the right to ask the question, whether it's an authoritative figure or whether it's your colleague, peer. So that way will bring the fostering relationship in academic or in other areas too. In contrast, when egalitarian cultures, it tend to promote more informal and collegial relationship, where students are encouraged to voice opinions, challenge ideas, and engage in open dialogue. So this is exactly opposite to the hierarchical relationship in academia, where the individual has been given the platform to bring up their own ideas, and they have encouraged to express whatever opinions they have, and they can challenge the ideas which has come from the other parties, but by keeping it a respectful opinion and engaging in open dialogues, are say that it will bring more foster relationship in the academic if they are following it or if they are practicing it. From a psychological perspective, this relationship models influence students' confidence, participations, and it also motivates them. For international or culturally diverse classroom, it's essential to create environment where all students feel safe and empowered, regardless of their background, while also encouraging mutual understanding of this differing academic expectation. So here basically it means that when the student come from different background, cultures, or belongs from a different place, then it's also necessary for the peer group or the authoritative figure who are working together in the same department, by providing the student who has come from the outside, who doesn't belong from that cultural background, by providing them the safe space in the department, and by letting them express their point of view, and respecting their cultural backgrounds will bring a fostering relationship again in the academia and in other factors of life too. Here is a case study where Japanese student hesitate to challenge professor's idea. When we coming up with this case study, we can also understand how different cultures works in different scenario. Here, a Japanese exchange student enrolled in a Western university hesitant to participate during classroom discussion, especially when it involves questioning or critiquing the professor's viewpoint. Although academically capable and insightful, the student remains quiet even when they disagree with the material presented. This behavior can be understood through the lens of cultural psychology. In Japanese culture, which place high value or respect for authority, social harmony, and avoiding public confrontation, challenging a professor may be perceived as disrespectful or inappropriate. That's why they will not question on the authoritative figure, but it doesn't mean that they are not capable of doing it. It just they have the previous experiences, they have the cultural experiences of not questioning the authority, and by bringing the social harmony is what they have been practicing. So because of these things, they will not question the ideas which is coming from the professor's sides, even though they will feel that it's not the thing, and they can put more into that, but they will not question on that. Additionally, the concept of anrio, which means restraint or reserve, may influence the student's decision to withhold their opinion. From an educational psychology standpoint, such cultural norms can affect classroom and engagement, self-expression, and learning outcomes. Understanding these dynamics allow educators to create more inclusive spaces by encouraging culturally sensitive participation strategies and reinforcing that respectful disagreement is valued in academic dialogue. When we talk about the anrio, it means that restraint or reserve thing where the student, by knowing also, they withhold their opinion just because thinking about the other person might not accept it, or there will be a biasness on the perspective which they will come up with. So here, being as an educator, we can always understand and we can always encourage the students who are in the same department. By encouraging them, we can always give them a place, a stage to come up with their perspective, and by understanding it or by collaborating it, we can always bring a new idea from that. So it's also very much necessary to understand how we can foster the relationship without bringing the biasness related to anything, and we can learn openly in a safe environment by working together, by giving feedback, and by taking the feedback too. Communication and collaboration challenges. Different expectations regarding supervisor-student dynamic, the role of collectivism versus individualism in academic teamwork, strategies for effective cross-cultural communication. We'll talk about this. Different expectations regarding supervisor-student dynamics. Here, supervisor-student dynamic can vary widely across cultures and academic contexts, often leading to mismatched expectation and misunderstanding. In some cultures, supervisors are viewed as authoritative figures who provide detailed guidance, structure, and closely monitor progress. In contrast, others may see the supervisor as a facilitator or mentor who encourages independence, critical thinking, and self-direction. For example, a student from a culture with high power distance may expect regular check-ins, explicit instructions, and difference in interactions, while a supervisor trained in a low power distance environment may assume the student will take initiative and communicate proactively. This differing expectation can impact motivation, academic performance, and psychological well-being. And to prevent misunderstanding, clear communication, mutual respect, and explicitly discussing roles and responsibilities early in the relationship can help bridge these gaps and foster a more effective and supportive learning environment. The role of collectivism versus individualism in academic teamwork. Cultural values around collectivism and individualism significantly shape how students approach teamwork in academic settings. In collectivism cultures, there is a strong emphasis on group harmony, shared responsibility, and consensus building. Students from this background may express or innovation. In contrast, students from individualism cultures often emphasize personal achievement, autonomy, and assertive contributions within a team. They may value direct feedback and individual recognize more than group consensus. This differing orientation can affect participations, decision-making, and perceptions of fairness and success in group projects. To foster academic relationship, awareness, and accommodation, of these cultural tendencies can foster more inclusive and productive teamwork. Encouraging open dialogue about expectations and stabilizing clear roles can help bridge cultural dives and support effective collaboration. Strategies for effective cross-cultural communication. Effective cross-cultural communication requires awareness, adaptability, and intentionality. First, cultivating cultural self-awareness helps individuals recognize their own biasness. When an individual develops that self-awareness where the biases can become from their previous experiences, it may be seen in their communication styles and the assumptions which they have been making because their previous experiences has been there. So that way, by working on self will bring the awareness and it will be effective cross-cultural communication where they can work with. It's essential to actively listen and observe. Bring sensitive to verbal and non-verbal cues that vary significantly across cultures. Adopting a mindset of curiosity rather than judgment allows for more open and respectful challenges. It also means that when individuals come from different backgrounds, different cultures, then it's very obvious that there will be some or the other bias which we have been already developed, but it's always good to work with self where you can bring the self-awareness, and by working with it, always remember that when you are in a communication with the other party, then listen very actively and observe the things. It can be a verbal cue or it can be a non-verbal cue which you can get from the other party. And adopting the mindset of curiosity where you would like to learn more, that kind of presence will bring diversify of ideas, and the other party with whom you are working, they will also feel good about it and more connectedness they will feel. There you can build the foster relationship and you can foster the relationship between the department, between the academic, between the collaboration which you have done without bringing the biasness of judgment. It will allow the team for more open and respectful exchanges in terms of the ideas. Additionally, using clear and simple language, avoiding items or culturally specific references can prevent misunderstanding. So it's also very much necessary whenever you are in a group or in a collaborative team, then by using simple and clear languages is preferable so that the other party can also understand it precisely and in a very clear manner, which can also prevent misunderstanding between the team. It is also helpful to confirm understanding through paraphrasing and ask clarifying questions. If suppose in any conversation, if one has not understood it, then it's also necessary to ask it again, and while asking, don't feel that what other party will think about you. It's nothing to do with that. Instead, clarifying the questions will bring more space in the room to understand it more collaboratively. And whenever you are listening to something, you can always paraphrase it, so to know whether whatever you have listened, whether you have got it in the same way or in a corrected way what the other person wants to deliver to you. And in academic and professional settings, stabilizing group rules for communication, encouraging inclusive participation and allowing time for reflection can create a more equitable space. Finally, showing empathy and being willing to adjust one's communication approach fosters trust and collaboration. Developing these skills not only improves intercultural interaction but also enhance academic and team effectiveness in increasingly global environments. Coming into the fostering inclusivity in academic environments, recognizing diverse learning and working styles, supporting students from different language background, social inclusivity, religious, dietary and cultural accommodation, case study, multicultural research lab adapting to students' needs. Coming into recognizing diverse learning and working style, recognizing diverse learning and working style is essential for creating an inclusive and effective educational or professional environment. People absorb, process, and apply information differently. Some may prefer visual aids, others may prefer the auditory explanation or hands-on experiences. Similarly, working styles varies. Some thrive in collaborative settings while others performs to choose or to work independently. By acknowledging and adapting to these differences, educators and leaders can enhance engagement, boost productivity, and support individual strengths. This approach fosters respect, reduces frustrations, and promotes a culture where everyone's unique method contributes to collective success. Supporting a student from different language backgrounds, is essential for fostering an inclusive and equitable learning environment. These students often face unique challenges including language barrier, cultural misunderstanding, and limited access to academic resources. Educators can play a vital role by adopting culturally responsive teaching practices, simplifying academic language without diluting content, and encouraging peer support network. Providing multilingual resources, offering extended time for assignment, and being sensitive to diverse communication style can significantly enhance their learning experiences. Ultimately, creating a welcoming and linguistically accessible classroom empowers all students to thrive academically and socially. Social inclusivity, religious, dietary, and cultural accommodation. Promoting social inclusivity within educational setting requires thoughtful attention to students' religious practices, dietary needs, and cultural values. These aspects are integral to students' identities and well-being. For example, acknowledging and accommodating religious holiday, providing food options, and respecting dress codes or prayer needs help students feel seen and respected. Educators and institutions should proactively seek to understand the diverse backgrounds of their students' population and implement inclusive policies and practices. Creating an environment that honors these differences not only fosters a sense of belongingness but also models respect and empathy. Key values in diverse learning communities. Case study on a multicultural research lab adapting to students' need. In one university research lab, students come from many different countries and cultures. The lab leader noticed that some students were struggling to keep up because of language differences, unfamiliar customs, or religious and dietary needs. To help, the lab made a few important changes where they added flexible meeting times to respect different time zones and prayer schedules, providing written summaries after meeting for students still learning English, and made sure food at lab events include vegetarian and culturally appropriate options. These changes help students feel more comfortable, included, and able to focus on their research. It's a great example of how a small adjustment can make a big difference in supporting a diverse team. Addressing biases and promoting cross-cultural respect, understanding implicit bias in academic relationship, the importance of microaggressions in students' mentorship, encouraging faculty training on diversity and inclusion. Understanding implicit bias in academic relationship. Implicit bias is an unconscious attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understandings, actions, and decisions. In academic relationships such as those between supervisors and students, this bias can influence how opportunities, feedback, or support are distributed, often without anyone realizing it. For example, a supervisor might unknowingly give more encouragement or trust to a student who share similar background or communication styles, and on that, other individual might feel disconnected or not seen. So we can always work on the implicit bias by bringing more self-awareness. Recognizing the presence of implicit bias is the first step towards building fairer, more inclusive academic environments, though self-reflection, feedback from diverse peers, and structures practices like transparent assessment criteria we can bring to reduce the impact of bias and ensure that all students have equal chances to succeed, and that can be possible when the individual will work with their self-awareness of implicit bias. The impact of microaggression of students' mentorship. Microaggression are subtle, often unintentional comments or behavior that communicate negative or stereotypical message to individuals from marginalized groups. In students' mentorship, this moments such as questioning a student's language ability, assuming their background, or overlooking their contribution can build up over time and lead to feeling of exclusions, anxiety, and reduced self-confidence. While they may seem minor, the cumulative effect of microaggression can damage the trust and openness essential for productive mentoring relationship. It's important for mentor to listen actively, reflect on their languages and assumptions, and create a safe, respectful space where all students feel valued and supported. Encouraging faculty training on diversity and inclusion. Promoting faculty training in diversity and inclusion is essential for creating supportive and equitable academic environment. Such training helps educators recognizing their own biases, understanding the diverse background of their students, and develop inclusive teaching and mentoring practices. When faculties are equipped with the skills to foster respectful dialogue, address discrimination, and support underrepresented groups, it is not only improves students' experiences, but also enhance the overall academic climate. Institutions should view diversity training not as a one-time workshop, but as an ongoing commitment to learning and growth for all members of the academic community. Peer mentorship program supporting international students. A peer mentorship program for international students connects new students from other countries with older students who are already familiar with the university. These mentors help newcomers adjust to the academic system, learn about campus resources, and feel more comfortable in a new culture. Having someone to talk to who understands their experiences can reduce stress and make international students feel more welcome and supported. This kind of program builds community and helps students succeed both socially and academically. Best practices for culture sensitivity, active listening, and adaptive adaptability in mentorship, clear communication of expectation and feedback style, promoting collaborative learning and networking. Case study, supervisor adjusting communication approach for a diverse team, which will be covered in the next slide. Active listening and adaptability in mentorship. Active listening and adaptability are essential qualities in effective mentorship. Active listening goes beyond simply hearing. It involves giving full attention, showing empathy, and seeking to truthfully understand a mentee's concerns and goals. When mentors listen actively, they create a safe space for open dialogue and trust. Adaptability complements this by allowing mentors to adjust their approach based on the unique needs, backgrounds, and learning style of each student. Together, these skills help build responsive and respectful relationship that supports mentees' growth and well-being. Clear communication of expectation and feedback styles. Establishing clear communication around expectations and feedback style is crucial in a successful mentorship relationship. When mentors clearly articulate what they expect, such as timelines, deliverables, and standards for work, it helps students feel more confident and reduce ambiguity. Equally important is discussing how feedback will be given. Some mentees may prefer direct, concise input, while others respond better to a more reflective or supportive style. By openly discussing these preferences early on, mentors can foster a respectful relationship and productive environment where students are more likely to grow, stay motivated, and meet their potential. Promoting collaborative learning and networking. Encouraging collaborative learning and networking is a powerful way to enhance students' academic and professional development. When students work together, they benefit from diverse perspectives, share knowledge, and build critical thinking skills. Mentors are facilitators they will create opportunities for groups, projects, peer discussions, and joint problem solvings. Additionally, helping students connected with others in their field through conferences, workshops, or online communities broaden their support system and exposes them to value resources and career opportunities. Building these connections not only strengthens learning, but also foster a sense of belongingness within the academic and professional community too. Here, a case study where a supervisor adjusting communication approach for a diverse team. In this case study, a supervisor worked with a team made up of people from different backgrounds and cultures. The supervisor noticed that everyone communicates and understands things in their own way. To help the team work better together, the supervisor changes how they talk and share information. Sometimes they use clear and simple language, other times they listen more carefully or explain things in different ways. By doing this, the supervisor makes sure everyone feels included and understands what to do, which helps the whole team succeed. Coming into the conclusion, cultural sensitivity enhances academic success and global collaboration. Building inclusive environment benefits both students and faculty. Ongoing learning and adaptation are key to cultural respect. Thank you.